فيها آيات بينات لعلكم تذكرون الزانية والزاني فاجلدوا كل واحد منهما 100 جلدة ولا تأخذكم بهما رأفة في دين الله إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر وليشهد عذابهما طائفة من المؤمنين
الزاني لا ينكح إلا زانية أو مشركة والزانية لا ينكحها
إلا ظان أو مشرك وحرم ذلك على المؤمنين والذين يرمون المحسنات ثم ولا تقبلوا لهم شهادة أبدا وأولئك هم الفاسقون إلا الذين تابوا من بعد ذلك وأصلحوا فإن الله غفور رحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بر محمد وعلى بيت محمد صلوات. بخاک پای تو هی سید حجاز سلام بخاک پای تو هی سید حجاز سلام بطاق ابروت هی شاید نواز سلام بطاق ابروتی شاید نواز سلام وزو بخون گلو از برای سرخی رو بزیر تیغ نکر دی قضا نماز سلام بخوام که پای تو ای سید حجاز سلام سرش بنیزر و خش جانب اسیران بود سرش بنیزر و خش جانب اسیران بود بطور صبر و توگو ید کلیم راز سلام بخاک پای تو ای سید حجاز سلام سرش بنيزة وقول سوم زينب ازدون بال بكج مداريتي چرخ دون نواز سلام بخاک پای تو ای سید اجاز سلام سر حسین بموقع بالمیان تشت تلا زکین ورزیتی چرخ کی نباز سلام سکین کرد و مخا تب یزید ظالم را سر حسین به نما تا دهند و باز سلام بخاک پای تو هی سید اجاز سلام بطاق ابروتی شای دل نواز سلام بر محمد و آل بیت محمد صلوات صلی علی محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Ibrahim. I would now request Maulana Syed Bilal Rizvi to please address the majlis, and I would request all of you to please recite a loud salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي دل على وجوب وجوده افتقار الممكنات، وعلى قدرته وعلمه أحكام المصنوعات، المتعاليا مشابهة الجسمانيات، المنزه بجلال قدسه عن مناسبة الناقصات. نحمده حمدا يملأ أقطار الأرض والسماوات، ونشكره شكرا على نعمه المتظاهرات المتواترات، والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين، الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين، والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: والذين اجتنبوا الطاغوت أن يعبدوها وأنابوا إلى الله لهم البشرى. فبشر عباد الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه، أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For the love of Fatima al-Zahra, one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The days which we're entering upon are the days of the Arba'een of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You see across traditions the number 40 is a number which carries significance. And within the Islamic thought, you find the number 40 is the number of takmil and perfection. That's why the tradition it states that in the way the skies they wept for 40 days for Yahya, in the same way the skies they wept for 40 days for Sayyid al-Shuhada. That in which ways was this Imam alone? You find this is that Imam that not only was his body upon the plains of Karbala for 3 days, but it took a number of days for his family to even go to the grave of Sayyid al-Shuhada. That this is the ghurbat of the Imam. And when it comes to crying for the Imam, there's a tradition which states that gharibun yabki ala ghariban. Only someone who is gharib. What does gharib mean? Gharib in Arabic means somebody who is alone, somebody who's misunderstood. The tradition it says that only a gharib will cry over somebody who is gharib. That you can live amongst a society, but you're not understood, making you gharib. That's why you see upon the night before Ashura, Sayyid al-Shuhada, he walks with Hilal. As he walks with Hilal, he says, Hilal, leave me now, for I want to cry in my loneliness at this moment. You see, this is that Imam who was gharib. But when you look at the titles of the A'immah, there is one Imam who was alone out of all of those Imams. There was one Imam who was titled Gharibul Ghuraba, and that is our 8th Imam, Imam al-Rida. Then why is this Imam Gharibul Ghuraba? You see, not only did he leave his family in Medina, he leaves his son in Medina. You know, to the extent that Al-Muhabil al-Sijistani, he narrates that as the Imam was leaving Medina, I would look at Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. I would notice that he would walk away from the grave of Rasulullah and he would walk back towards the grave of Rasulullah. And each time he would go, he would come back with tears within his eyes. I saw this happen several times in front of me. I went and I congratulated him. I said, "Oh Imam, Ma'mun is inviting you." He says, "Don't you know this is my exile? I'll never return towards the land of Medina." You see, this Imam, that when you look at the A'immah, within Baqi, there are multiple graves in Baqi. When you go to Najaf with Amir al-Mu'mineen, Nuh and Adam are buried by Amir al-Mu'mineen. When you go to Qadimiyya, there are 2 Imams in Qadimiyya. When you go to Samara, there are multiple Imams in Samara. But there's one grave which stands alone in Khurasan. That is the grave of the 8th Imam. You find from one level, this Imam is Gharibul Ghuraba because of that. But no, the tradition of his son, it states that when it comes to the other A'immah, Yazuruhum khasatan wa amma, that the close ones and the general ones do their ziyarah. But you know who Imam al-Rida is? It's stated within the ziyarah of the Imam. Maulaya anta alladhi la yazuruka illa al-khawas min al-Shia. That, oh Imam, only the close confidants from amongst the Shia, they do your ziyarah. What does this line mean? You see, there have been many sects of this Shia. Some of them, such as the Waqifiyya, they stop at the 7th Imam. Some of such as the Zaydiyya, some as the Ismailiyya. When it comes to all of the Imams before Imam al-Rida, you find that more generalized was their ziyarah. All of these different groups would go towards their ziyarah. But the one who does the ziyarah of the 8th Imam is Ithna Ashri, a 12er. That this is what it means, that Khawas min al-Shia, this is the ziyarah of the Imam. And indeed tonight, the topic which I picked is examining the life of Imam al-Rida and its implication within society today. That when you look at the world today, you find the world in many ways as a global village, as we say. And this opportunity is more so within the West than you find within the Eastern countries. When you look over here, you may have neighbors who are Jewish, you may have neighbors who are Christian. You may know individuals in your workplace who are atheists, but you find Imam al-Rida the way he would discuss, and he would show the methodology of discussing with other individuals to show all of these realities. That's why it's stated that within the time period of Ma'mun, when Ma'mun, he builds this group called Darul Hikmah, the institution of wisdom, you would find that books would be translated from the Roman language and they would be translated from the Greek language. That books would be brought from Rome and Cyprus upon different subjects. You find in that courtyard, when they would debate and discuss with Imam al-Rida, the historians have stated that Imam al-Rida, he answered 20,000 questions within the court of Ma'mun. And this doesn't mention his discussions in Basra and Kufa, to the extent that when you look within the narrations, you find the concept of Hujaj al-Radawiyya, the evidences of Imam al-Rida. You know, there's a famous salawat, which the ulama, they've written that you send upon the 12th Imam. You know what that salawat, it states? Within that salawat you say, Allahumma salli ala sahib al-da'wat al-nabawiyya, والصولة العلوية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلوم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والغيرة العباسية والعفة الزينبية والمعطر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم القادمية والحجج الردوية. And the salawat, it continues towards the end. But you find what is mentioned over here is Hujaj al-Radawiyya. That within the court of Ma'mun, you find the Imam, he gave so many different pieces of evidence that whoever makes it towards the 8th Imam, he makes it towards the 12th Imam based upon the evidences which the Imam he gave. And you find within the world today, this reality needs to be there, that we need to learn from the Imam how to discuss, how to interact with different groups. You know, we've seen recently that this year, just this year within Scotland, you find the first time a Western country named a national day after Imam al-Hussein. That, you know, I personally know the individuals who work upon this project. They find the direction of the world is that the world is ready for discussion, but you have to facilitate this discussion. That's why the 8th Imam used to say, Rahimallahu abdan ahya amrana, that may Allah have mercy upon the one who revives our affairs. They say to the Imam, that, oh Imam, how do we revive your affairs? The Imam says, learn our sciences, yata'allamuna ulumana, those who learn our sciences and teach the people our sciences. This is the reality of the Imam. Now when it comes to the biography of the Imam, I'll discuss on a number of levels. Number one, we'll analyze who was the mother of the Imam. Number two, what were the attributes of the Imam? Number three, in what manner did he move from Medina towards Khurasan? Number four, what were the debates of the Imam in the court of Ma'mun, and why was the Imam called the Alim of Ali Muhammad? Number five, in what way does the Imam encourage poetry for the virtues of his grandfathers and for Ahlul Bayt? And number six, I'll analyze the famous tradition of the Imam, which he says to Rayhan ibn Shabib about the mourning of his grandfather Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and we'll discuss upon these points. Now when it comes to the biography of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, you find without a doubt that the analysis of the lives of the Imams, they begin with their fathers and their mothers. Now many individuals, they know who the fathers of the Imam was, that one after another. But who was the mother of Imam al-Rida? You know, you state in Ziyaratul Waritha, what do you say? You say about Abu Abdullah, Ashhadu annaka kunta nuran fil aslab al-shamikha wal arham al-mutahhara. That, O Abu Abdullah, that we acknowledge that you were a light within the most sublime of lines, and what? You were within the most purified of wombs. It goes to show that even the mothers of an Imam, they have reality. That the Imam, that in their time period, in the land they were in, if the most pure lady wasn't there, they'll go and bring her from Rome, for example. They'll bring her from Iran, for example. They'll bring her from Africa, for example. They'll bring her from Maghrib, for example. You see, the Imam, he goes to show that when you judge an individual, the skin color was not the barometer of judging them. What the barometer is the barometer of the Quran. When the Quran says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, that the best and most honored amongst you is the one who is the most pious. That you find the Imams, they show this reality. You know, it's stated within the life of Imam al-Rida, that even when the Imam was the heir apparent of Ma'mun, you find he would sit with the servants, he would sit with the door guards. It's stated that he would sit with servants who were from Africa, from Abyssinia. At that point, a man comes to the Imam. He says, "Oh Imam, I want to sit with you. Why don't you separate some food from me?" You know what the Imam says? He says, "I do not think I am better than this servant on account of my relation with Rasulullah, except by the fact that I do deeds which are righteous." You know, in the court of the Abbasids, they tried to show their relationship with Rasulullah. It's stated one day, Harun al-Rashid, he goes to Masjid al-Nabawi. When he goes to Masjid al-Nabawi, he wanted to show off about his relationship. So he would say, "Oh, my cousin Rasulullah." At that point, Imam al-Qadim, he walks in. He says, "Oh, my grandfather Rasulullah." Harun al-Rashid, he says to him, that how dare you say this line? What is different between me and you? The Imam, he looks at him. He says towards him that if Rasulullah proposed to your daughter, would you accept it? He said, "Of course I would accept it. This is a sign of status for me." He says, "This is the difference between us and you, is that Rasulullah would be able to accept that. But we are the children of Rasulullah. It is haram upon us to propose her towards him." That this is the reality. And he says at the second level, if Rasulullah walks in towards your house, you find that the women of your house would put hijab in front of Rasulullah, but those within our house are the daughters and the granddaughters of Rasulullah, that they wouldn't put hijab in front of the Prophet of God. This is that difference. So you find the Imam, he goes to show what differentiates an individual is the taqwa and the character of that human being. And in the same way, you find the mother of the 8th Imam. Who was the mother of the 8th Imam? You find the traditions, they differ upon her names. You find that Shaykh al-Mufid, he writes her name was Najma. You find other sources such as Bihar say her name was Arwa. But you find other sources, they say her name was Tuqtam. That who was Tuqtam, the mother of the Imam? You find one narration states, and this narration is found in Uyun Akhbar al-Rida, and I'll mention it quickly. The narration states that she was the servant of Hamida, the wife of Imam al-Sadiq. But no, there's one other narration, which is found in more sources. For example, it's found in Uyun Akhbar al-Rida. It's found in Al-Kafi, and it's found in Kashf al-Ghumma. It states that one day, a man, he goes out with Imam al-Qadim. When he goes out with Imam al-Qadim, he says to that man, who was his companion, he says, "Did you not hear that the people of Maghrib in modern day Morocco have come?" He says, "No, I didn't hear." He says, "Let's go towards them and see what individuals, what slaves they have brought." You find the Imam, he goes towards them. The man, he brings out 9 slave girls. The Imam says towards them, "Is there anyone else in this caravan?" He says, "There's one individual. She's very sick at the moment, but I won't sell her towards you." You find the Imam says, "Very well," he goes back. The next day, he says to his companion, "Go towards that man and tell him that that Musa al-Qadim will pay him whatever amount to buy that slave girl." He goes towards the man. He says to him that, "How much do you want for that slave girl whom you wouldn't sell yesterday?" He says, "I want so and so amount." You find he says, "Very well, I'll give you that amount." As he was giving the slave girl towards the companion of the Imam, he says, "Tell me about the man whom you came with." He says the man was from Banu Hashim, and he was from amongst the best of Banu Hashim. He says, "I have a story to tell you about the slave girl. people that when we brought this girl from Morocco, from Maghrib, the women of the Ahle Kitab, the Christians and the Jews used to say towards us, that don't take this slave girl for yourself, for you are not worthy of this slave girl. For she will give birth to the best of creation, thus she deserves to be with the one who is the best of creation right now. You find this is the reality of the mother of Imam al-Rida. And you find that when the mother of the Imam is like this, what realities must the Imam have within himself? That when you look at the attributes of this Imam, you find this is that Imam whom within the traditions, he was called Imam al-Ra'uf, the Imam of kindness. In what sense? You know, it's stated within Imam al-Rida, when he was the heir apparent of Ma'mun, he wouldn't make his servants do his tasks for him. Whenever he had any objective to carry out, he would do it himself. To the extent that even at that time period, you find the kings, they would take a bath within their home. Everyone else, they would go towards the public baths. It's stated that Imam al-Rida, when he goes towards the public bath, the soldier at that bath, he doesn't recognize the Imam. He says to the Imam, pour water upon me and begin cleaning me. The Imam, he does so. At that moment, somebody sees and recognizes the Imam. They say towards that soldier that, what are you doing? You are making the son of the daughter of the Prophet and the heir apparent of Ma'mun clean you? He says, oh Imam, oh Master, he falls at the feet of the Imam. He said, I made a mistake. The Imam says, I was doing something which Allah would reward me for. That don't consider it anything like that. This is the reality of Imam al-Rida. This is that Imam. That one day an individual, he comes to the Imam. He says, oh Imam, I am in debt. The Imam says to him, wait outside my house. You find it was the time period of Ramadan. He begins to think. The Imam, he told me to wait outside. Is the Imam going to come even, or is he going to leave me? He states that I waited until the time of Maghrib. I was fasting and the hunger came upon me. I thought about leaving, but as I was leaving, I saw that Imam al-Rida was walking towards his house. As he was walking towards his house, the poor individuals of the town, they were surrounding him. The Imam would give towards them. The Imam walks in towards his house. When the Imam, he went towards his house, his servant came out. He said, come in. When I come inside, when I came inside the house, the Imam says, have you eaten? He says, I haven't eaten. The Imam, he gives me food. After the Imam, he fed me. He says, look underneath the pillow. And he says, I didn't tell the Imam the amount I needed, the amount I was in debt. It stated that underneath the pillow were 48 dinars. I thought to myself that I only needed 28 dinar. Why are there 48? As I was looking, I found engraved upon the final dinar. It was written upon that, I know that your debt is 28 dinar, but the rest of the 20 are for your own expenses. That this is the generosity of Imam al-Rida. You know, it's stated that at one point Shaykh al-Bahai, that who was Shaykh al-Bahai? Shaykh al-Bahai was an alim in the Shia school of thought, that not only did he learn every science, but he went into the depths of every science. That even when you look at the doors in the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the rooms within the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Shaykh Bahai, he designed the Haram in such a way that if you are in a particular room at a particular time, your knowledge will increase based upon the stars. That you find his ulum was in this much depth in so many different fields. This is Shaykh Bahai. And I've seen the manuscript of that book myself, of the different rooms in the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen. You find at one point, he goes to the Haram of Imam al-Rida. He recites particular du'as at one of the doors to the Haram of the Imam. And his du'a was this, is that, oh Imam, don't let anyone enter through this door except for the one whose lineage can be confirmed. Now I can't say more than this from the mimbar, but the one whose lineage can be confirmed. It's stated after that, Shaykh Bahai, he goes towards Isfahan. After he returns from Isfahan after 3 months, he noticed that that door has been destroyed. At that point, he begins to speak to the khuddam and the servants. He says, why did you destroy this door upon which I recited these du'as? He says that each of us saw Imam al-Rida within our dreams. And Imam al-Rida, he told us that it is not from amongst our sirat and our habits to expose the faults of individuals. This door was that door which would expose individuals. It would expose their faults. And he told us to destroy this door. That this is the reality of the generosity of the Imam. Another man, he comes to the Imam. He says to them, "O Imam, give me to the extent of your generosity." The Imam says, "I'm not able to do that." He says, "I understand the mistake." Then he says, "Give me to the extent of my generosity." The Imam, he gives him 200 dinar. You know, the Imam was showing that even if I give away every single possession that I have, it is not a reflection of my generosity. That this is the reality and the attributes of the Imam. What is the other attribute of the Imam? You find this Imam was called Alim Muhammad. That he was called the alim, the scholar of Ali Muhammad. And this isn't found within just the sayings of the ulama, but it's found within the hadith. That Imam al-Qadim, upon his wasiyah, he would say towards his children, he would say, "Hada akhukum," that this is your brother, hold on towards him, and he is the alim of Ali Muhammad. Now the question comes up, is that why is Imam al-Sadiq not the alim of Ali Muhammad? Why is Amir al-Mu'mineen not the alim of Ali Muhammad? The answer, it lies that these titles are about the manifestation of the traits. That at the end of the day, Imam al-Sadiq has the same bravery that Amir al-Mu'mineen does. That if Imam al-Sadiq was there upon the day of Khaybar, he can lift the gate of Khaybar. There is no doubt within that. But you find it is about the manifestation. Imam al-Rida, within the court of Ma'mun, as I stated, 20,000 questions he answered. It goes to show that this Imam, he had the most opportunity to manifest that knowledge, to the extent the concept of Hujaj al-Radawiyya, which I mentioned towards you earlier, that what is the knowledge of the Imam? You know, it's stated, there was a man by the name of Habib al-Nabaji in the town of Nabaj. He says, within my dreams, I saw Rasulullah was sitting within the mosque within that town. And as Rasulullah was sitting, in front of him were dates. I went towards Rasulullah, and Rasulullah, he gives me 18 dates. He says, I got this dream interpreted. When I got this dream interpreted, the man said towards me, this means that you will live 18 years. He says, after that, this town which was near Basra, I found that Imam al-Rida, he came towards this town. When I went towards Imam al-Rida, I found him sitting in the same place where Rasulullah was sitting. And in front of him were dates in the way there were dates in front of Rasulullah. I went towards him. I said, "O grandson of Rasulullah, can you give me dates?" The Imam, he gives me a handful of dates. At that moment, I began to count them. When I counted them, there were 18 dates within my hands. I said towards them, "Oh, the son of Rasulullah, why don't you increase for me?" You find the Imam, he says, if Rasulullah had given you more, I would have given you more. That this is the reality of Imam al-Rida. It's stated that we have traditions that state that the Imam would speak in Roman. A man, Abu Ismail al-Sindi, he comes towards the Imam. He says to the Imam, "I heard there is an Arab Hujjat of Allah." He asked him this within the Sindhi language, the tradition, it says that word. You find the Imam, he replies towards him. He says, "I thought the Hujjah would be Arab." He says, "I am that Hujjah, but the Hujjat of Allah is the one who speaks all of the languages upon whom he is approved." That he says to Abul Salt in a different narration, he says, "O Abul Salt, I am able to speak all of the languages. What do you think that my grandfather Ali, he meant when he said, Utina faslul khitab? That what is this faslul khitab?" He says, "O Abul Salt, this is none other than all of the languages, that ulum, it belongs with me." You find this is the reality of Imam al-Rida. But a point had come due to the political circumstances. You find Ma'mun, he makes Imam al-Rida his heir apparent. Now, why did Ma'mun do this?
He did this because in that time period, there were many uprisings which were happening. So to consolidate the Iranian bloc of the government and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, he pretended to be a Shia, and he made the Imam the heir apparent. When he makes the Imam the heir apparent, you know what the Imam he says? He says, fine, I'll accept this position, because he was forced in towards it. He says, I'll accept it, but I'll never appoint anyone to office, I'll never remove anyone from office, and I'll never pass a ruling. If I say towards you that I am a judge, and you come towards me with an issue, and I say towards you that I won't answer the issue, you'll say to me, what's the point of you being a judge? The point is exactly that. The Imam is showing that he doesn't pass rulings. He doesn't put people in position. He doesn't remove people. He's going to show that although outwardly I accepted this position, but it doesn't show that I am happy with taking this reality. You find this Imam, he was forced from Medina towards Marv, which was the capital of Ma'mun. But you know, Ma'mun, he gave instruction towards his guards. He says everyone who sees Ali ibn Musa Rida becomes his followers. So when you take him, put a type of curtain upon the camel which you take him. And don't take him from the main routes. You find the Imam, he was taken through a different route. As he was taken through a different route, he's taken through the city of Nishapur. You know, it's stated within Nishapur that 24,000 individuals, when they heard that Imam al-Rida was coming, they came out with pen and paper in their hand. That this is the grandson of Rasulullah, the one who was denied pen and paper upon his deathbed. Today a day comes where the grandson of Rasulullah, 24,000 individuals with pen and paper. At that moment, they tried to hold the saddle of the Imam, the reins to the camel of the Imam. They say, Yabna Rasulullah, can you give me one hadith? You find Imam al-Rida, he opens the curtain towards that caravan. He says, I heard my father Ja'far al-Sadiq, I heard my father Musa al-Qadim, who heard from his father Ja'far al-Sadiq, who heard from his father Muhammad al-Baqir, who heard from his father Zain al-Abidin, who heard from his father Imam al-Hussein, who heard from Imam al-Hassan, who heard from Amir al-Mu'mineen, who heard from Rasulullah, that Rasulullah says Jibreel descended upon me, and he says that Allah himself, he states, La ilaha illallah hisni, faman dakhala hisni amina min adabi. Allah says, La ilaha illallah is my fortress. The one who enters my fortress will be saved from my punishment. At that moment, the caravan, it begins to move again. Everyone, they begin to think, that's it, La ilaha illallah. The Imam, he opens the curtain. He says what? He says, Bishuruteha wa ana min shuruteha. But this La ilaha illallah, it has conditions, and I am one of the conditions of La ilaha illallah. That who is saying this? This is that Imam who is Ali. You know, on that day they rejected pen and paper towards Rasulullah. This Imam who is Ali, he is showing what Rasulullah wanted to write. He wanted to write that Ali is the condition of La ilaha illallah. Whether it's Ali ibn Musa al-Rida or it's Ali ibn Abi Talib. For when Islam is in danger, it is Ali who comes towards the help of Islam. You find the Imam, he's taken towards the court of Ma'mun. It's stated when the Imam, he initially goes towards the court of Ma'mun, the books of history, the authentic sources, they state that the servants of Ma'mun, they conspired amongst themselves. They say when Ali ibn Musa Rida comes, we won't stand up for Ali ibn Musa Rida. We won't show respect towards Ali ibn Musa Rida. It's stated that the moment the Imam, he walks in towards the courtyard, the jalal and the grandeur upon the face of the Imam was such that all of them, they began to stand without even realizing. And you know, it's stated that upon the next day when the Imam Imam came, they said to themselves that we'll stand up for the Imam, but we won't open the curtain for the Imam. It stated when the Imam, he begins to walk towards the courtyard, a gust of wind, it came, it opens the wind, it opens the curtain for the Imam. He walks in towards the courtyard, and as the Imam is leaving, another gust of wind, it comes, it opens the curtain for the Imam. You find at that moment they begin to say, this is the one whom Allah, He supports this man, then we must serve this man. That this is the reality of the Imam. And within that courtyard, you find Ma'mun. He would invite different individuals to debate with the Imam, because he knew that if the Imam, he couldn't answer a question, it was within the theology of the Shia that the Imam is the one who is more knowledgeable than the rest of creation. For example, it's stated that a philosopher, a man by the name of Umran as-Sabi, he comes towards the Imam. Umran as-Sabi. You know, he came with sincere intentions, for he lowered his head in humility. The Imam says, don't confuse the people in the way the mutaqallimun and these polemicists, they confuse the people. He says, no, Imam, I've come with sincerely to ask and to learn haqa'iq and reality. He says to the Imam, oh Imam, how does one recognize Allah? That how do you recognize Allah? The Imam, he replies by saying that you recognize Allah by other than Allah. That you recognize Allah by other than Allah. You know, many of these discussions are very philosophical. I don't have time to go into huwiyat and mahiyat and all of these different concepts. But I'll mention the ones that relate towards the general public. You find he says that I recognize Allah through other than Allah. You know, the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, they say, don't ponder over the essence of Allah. For Allah is unlimited, your mind is limited. How can you comprehend the one who is unlimited with a mind that is limited? That each of the creation of Allah, Imam al-Rida within this debate, he says that each atom upon this earth, you find it indicates that there is a creator. That's why when you look at the Quran, and the Quran, it speaks about the mountains and the skies and different avenues in the natural world. It calls all of them ayat and signs. The same word which is used to describe the verses of the Quran, ayat, is the same word which is used to describe all of these natural reality. Oftentimes when we see an environmental crisis going on within the world today, people, they think of this as an issue because this is the root source. But no, these are symptoms of a bigger problem. The bigger problem is that individuals, they didn't recognize the natural world as a divine reality and as a sign of Allah. That if you recognize nature as a sign of Allah, you would give it that respect. You find the Imam says that everything other than Allah is a sign of Allah. This man, Umran as-Sabi, he asked the Imam a different question. He says, who is closer to Allah, the humans or the angels? You find the Imam, he looks at him. He says that if you mean in terms of the length of this arm, in the meaning of physical length, then the humans and the angels are equally close towards Allah. For Allah is not limited by zaman and makan, He is not limited by time and place. But He says if you mean in the realm of the hierarchy of existence, in the realm of closeness, then the one who is more obedient towards Allah is closer towards Allah. And he says, doesn't Allah say, the one who is closest to me is the one who is in sujood and prostration? And he says, I'll give you another example. You've heard the incident when one angel from the west it comes, and an angel from the east it comes, and the angel from the highest reality it came, and an angel from the lowest reality it came. And they began to speak towards each other, and they said, where do you come from? Each of them said that Allah has sent us. This is proof that Allah is not limited in these relations, that when you want to know closeness towards Allah, it's not in zaman and makan, but it's in obedience and in that form. You know, this man, he asked Imam al-Rida another question. He says, you say Allah is everywhere, but then why do you raise your hands in dua? You say Allah is everywhere, but why do you raise your hands? Amir al-Mu'mineen, Dua al-Kumail, he says, Madadtu yadi. That, oh Allah, I've extended my hands. You find Imam al-Rida says Allah has limited the human being in certain directions of worship. That he faces towards the Kaaba and he worships. When a human being, he raises his hand towards the sky. It's not that Allah is limited towards the sky, but it shows the humility of that human being. You see, this is the reality of the Imam within the court of Ma'mun. Another individual, he comes to the Imam, he asks questions, the Imam, he defeats him. But at one point, the Imam, he says to, you find Ma'mun, he says to his wazir, Fadl bin Sahel, he says, get all of the different scholars of all of the different schools of thought. You find Fadl bin Sahel, he gets Jatalik, the head of the Catholics. He gets Rasul Jalut, the high rabbi. He calls the head of the Hindus. He calls the head of the Zoroastrians. He calls Nistas ar-Rumi, the famous medical doctor of Rome. All of them gather. At that point, Ma'mun, he says that tomorrow I want you to debate my cousin and defeat my cousin. At that point, they gather within the court of Ma'mun. Ma'mun, he sends a man by the name of Nofali, who was a lover of Imam al-Rida. When Nofali, he sees the Imam says, oh Nofali, the people of Iraq are soft-hearted. Why don't you tell me what my cousin he intends upon this day? You find Nofali, he says that this individual, he wants to test your knowledge. And the foundation which he has made is shaky and it's an evil foundation. The Imam says, oh Nofali, what is this evil foundation? Nofali, he says towards the Imam that he has not invited ulama to his court. He has invited mutakallimun and debaters towards his court, because the ulama are those who accept realities. That the sign of an alim is that he searches for haqq. When haqq is in front of him, he accepts that haqq and that truth. But he says these debaters are those individuals. If you tell them Allah is one, they'll say bring the proof. And when you bring the proof, they'll twist your words. And when you say that Muhammad is a prophet, they'll say bring your proof and they'll twist your words. At that moment, the Imam, he looks at Nofali. He says, oh Nofali, do you have doubts in my arguments and my ilm? He says, oh Imam, I don't have any doubts within you, but I know Ma'mun has an evil intention. The Imam says, oh Nofali, the moment look at the face of Ma'mun, when I answer the people of the Torah from the Torah, and I answer the people of the Injil from the Injil, and I answer the people of the Zabur from the Zabur, and I answer the Zoroastrians in Persian, and I answer the Romans in Latin, at that moment look at the face of Ma'mun. For Ma'mun will realize what my reality is. It's stated the next day, Imam al-Rida, he walks in towards that courtyard. When he walks in towards that courtyard, Ma'mun, he speaks towards Jatalik, the head of the Catholics. He says, question my cousin Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. You know, he says, how can I question a man who doesn't believe in the book that I have? The Imam, he looks at him, he says, fine, then we'll discuss according towards the Injil and the Torah. We'll discuss based upon the books that you believe in. He says, very well. He says towards him that you find this Jatalik, he says towards the Imam, that how do you believe in Rasulullah? What proof do you have in Rasulullah? You find, the Imam, he says, I believe in Rasulullah. For Isa had testified to the messengership of Rasulullah. At that moment, Jatalik, he says towards the Imam, that within your traditions you need 2 witnesses. But both of those witnesses have to be from outside those involved within the incident. Why don't you bring me 2 witnesses who testify to the prophethood of Rasulullah? At that moment, the Imam says, I'll bring you a witness who not only was he loved by Isa, but he was loved by Maryam as well. The man says, very well, I'll accept this. He says, what do you think of Al-Yohanna ad-Daylami, John ad-Daylami? He says, by Allah, this is the one whom Masih himself loved. You find the Imam says, it is written within the Injil that Al-Yohanna ad-Daylami said that Masih himself, he states that after me will be a prophet who will bring good news towards the people. That moment he looks towards Nistasa Rumi. He says, "Oh Nistasa Rumi, you memorize 1/3 of the Bible. I'll recite the Bible in front of you. You tell me if it's correct." At that moment, the Imam, he begins to recite the Bible. Nistasa Rumi, he says, "Everything you said which is correct." He looks back towards Jatalik, the head of the Catholics. He says towards him, "Now do you testify that this is a witness who testified to the messengership of Rasulullah?" He says, "I testify towards that." After that, he says towards them, he says, "Listen, I accept Jesus' position, but there was one shortcoming in Jesus. He didn't pray as much as he should pray, and he didn't fast as much as he should have fasted." At that moment, Jatalik, the head of the Catholics, he stands up. He says, "You are the alim of the Muslims? How dare you say our Lord Jesus had shortcomings in prayer and fasting?" At that moment, the Imam, he says that what is fasting and prayer? He says it's ibadat. He says the one who does ibadat is the abd and the servant of Allah. That if Isa is Lord, as you say, who is he praying to and whom is he fasting for? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ حیدری، آواز بلند صلوات.
Then after that, he says towards him, that why do you accept Isa as this, why do you take Isa as a Lord? He says because Isa would bring the dead back to life and he would heal the leper. Someone who does this must surely be the Lord. You find Imam al-Rida, he states that within the Bible it is written that Elijah would bring the dead back to life. And it's stated that Ezekiel, Hiskiel, would bring 35 individuals back to life. Further than that, the story of Ibrahim is there when he takes the 4 birds and he cuts them and he mixes them up and he calls them and all of them come back alive. And the story of Musa is there when he goes with 70 individuals upon Tur Sinin and they say, "Show me Allah." At that moment, a lightning bolt strikes them and then they come back to life. He says, "Why don't you take them as lords as well?" You find the Imam, after that, Jatalik, he has nothing to say. At that moment, the Imam, he turns towards Rasul Jalud. When he looks towards Rasul Jalud, the head of the rabbis, he says towards him that I will recite the Torah for you. At that moment, he says it is written within the Torah that the evidence for the messengership of Rasulullah is there. He says, where is this written? He says it's stated within the Torah that the Lord, he manifested his light upon what? He manifested his light upon Mount Sinai. Then after that on Jabal al-Sa'id. Then after that upon Jabal al-Farhan. He says, who is the one who manifested his light upon Jabal al-Sa'id? He says that Isa is the one. And then he says, who is the one who manifested his light upon Jabal al-Faran? The one revelation came to upon that. He says, no man other than my grandfather Rasulullah, he claims this. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The ziyarah of the Imam, to the extent that many individuals would be surprised at how emphasized the ziyarah of Imam al-Rida is. You find in one tradition, a man by the name of Abu Nasr, he states that I heard that the Imam had written, Abligh Shiati, that inform my Shias, that inna ziyarati ta'dilu inda Allahi azza wa jal alfa hijjatin. He says that inform my Shia that the reward of my ziyarah is equivalent to 1,000 hajj. At that moment, the man, he states, فَرَوَيْتُ الْحَدِيثَ إِنْدَ Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. I narrated this narration, and we'll get one salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's good to end dua with the salawat as well. He says, I narrated this narration in front of Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. You know what Imam Muhammad al-Jawad, he said? He said, Ay wallah, alfa hijjatin liman zarahu arifan bihaqqihi. He says the one who does the ziyarah of Imam al-Rida arifan bihaqqihi, recognizing the reality of the Imam, the reward of the ziyarat of Imam al-Rida is 1 million hajj. He says 1,000, 1,000. Another narration of the Imam says, Man zarani ala bu'd dari, that the one who does my ziyarat at my place which is far from him. You know, it's interesting when you look at the words of the Imam, that if right now I asked you that we take a far off place, for example, we say Argentina, you would say that Argentina is far from me. You wouldn't say I am far from Argentina. Why? Because the place you are in is the starting point. You don't make that place the ending point. You don't say I am far from Argentina. The Imam, he doesn't say my Shia are far from me. The Imam says, Man zarani ala bu'd dari, at my place which is far from them. That what is the wisdom of the Imam? The Imam, he's going to show that even if you have to take 3 flights or 4 flights, even if a time comes that you're scattered from my place of ziyarah, my ziyarah is this emphasized, that the vision of the Imam was a vision in towards the future. And you know what the Imam, he says, Man zarani ala bu'd dari, the one who does my ziyarah, فَأَتَيْتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فِي ثَلَاثِ مَوَاطِنَ. He says that I visit him upon the day of judgment in 3 places. He says, I visit that individual upon the day of judgment in 3 places. حَتَّى أُخَلِّصُهُ مِنْ أَحْوَالِهَا, until I free him from the state that he is in. The first place I visit him is when that book of scrolls is given in his right hand or his left hand. The second maqam where I visit him is upon the sirat. And the third maqam which I visit him is upon what is on that mizan. You see, this is the reality of the Imam. You know, I remember one poet, they said towards him, his name was Abu Nuwas. They say towards him, you've written about the mountains and the earth. You've written everything, but you haven't written the fadail of Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. You know what that poet, he says? He says, La astati'u, he says what? He says, La astati'u madha imamin kana Jibra'ilu khadiman li abihi. He says, I don't have the ability to do the praise of that Imam for whose father Jibra'il was a servant. After that he says, Wallahi ma taraktu dhalika illa a'daman lahu. That by Allah, I haven't left the praise of him except to magnify him. And then after that he says, Laysa yaqdiru mithli. He says, a person like me does not have the ability to praise an individual like him. This is the reality of the Imam. And indeed, when you look at the ways of the Imam, you find one of the most important ways that the Imam he emphasized was the remembrance of his grandfather Hussein. You know, there's a famous tradition attributed towards the Imam where he says to Rayhan ibn Shabib, he says towards him, he says, Yabna Shabib, in kunta baqiyan li shay'in fabki lil Hussein ibn Ali. He says, oh son of Shabib, if you ever want to cry, whatever problem it is, whether it's your own sadness, whether it's a personal problem, whether it's the difficulties of life, he says, Yabna Shabib, make the intention that you will cry for my grandfather Hussein. Then he describes who his grandfather was. He says, Innahu yudbahu kama yudbahul kabsh. He says, Innahu dubiha kama yudbahul kabsh. He says, for my grandfather was slaughtered in the way that they slaughter a sheep. You know, the ulama, they discussed, is that what does the Imam mean with this tradition? Because when you slaughter a sheep, you give water towards the sheep. When you slaughter a sheep, you sharpen the sword. When you slaughter a sheep, you make sure no other animals are looking at it. But when they slaughtered Imam al-Hussein, that neither did they give him water, neither did they sharpen the sword. The tradition states that at 70 steps, Sayyid Zainab would watch a shimmer which should sit upon the chest of Imam al-Hussein. You find they stated that when somebody slaughters a sheep, there's no one to say, don't slaughter that sheep. In the same way, when they killed the grandson of Rasulullah, no one there to say, don't kill the grandson of Rasulullah. Imam al-Rida would give this tradition. But you know, it's stated at one point that Bilal al-Khuzai, he was reciting poetry in front of the Imam. You know what Bilal would say? He would say, in the way that at-tasbih, it breaks and the beads they scattered. In the same way they scattered the house of Fatima to Zahra, that there are graves in Medina, there is a grave in Najaf, there is a grave in Baghdad. You find the Imam, he stops De'bil, he says, oh De'bil, can I add towards your poetry? The De'bil, he says, oh Imam, you want to add towards my poetry? The Imam says, yes, I want to add towards it. You know what the Imam, he says? He says, وَقَبْرٌ بِتُوسٍ يَا لَهَا مِن مُصِيبَةٍ. He says, oh De'bil, there will also be a qabr, a grave in Tus, whose musibah will be very great. You find De'bil, he says, oh Imam, whose grave will that be? The Imam says, oh De'bil, it will be my grave within Tus, so De'bil al-Khuzai. You find this is that Imam who is Gharib al-Ghuraba. I mentioned in Najaf by Amir al-Mu'mineen is Adam and Nuh. In Baqi there are multiple graves. In Kadman there are 2 Imams. In Samara there are 2 Imams. In Karbala Aba Fadl Abbas is what Sayyid al-Shuhada. But this is that Imam whose grave it stands alone in Khurasan. You know, it's stated when the Imam he went towards the court of Ma'mun for the final time, he said to his companion Aba Salt, he says, oh Aba Salt, if you see me come out and my Abba is upon my shoulder, then come speak to me. And if you see that my Abba is upon my head, know that I've been poisoned. The Imam, he goes in towards the court of Ma'mun. He doesn't want to eat the grapes which were poisoned. But you find the guard of Ma'mun says, if you don't eat from this, I'll put the sword upon your neck. You find the Imam, he eats, the poison begins going through the body of Imam al-Rida. You know, I don't know if you know how far the house of the Imam was from the castle of Ma'mun. It stated the house of the Imam was in front of the castle, that it was only a few minute walk for the Imam. The riwayat it states that the Imam 40 times he sat upon the ground from the pain of that poison which was going through the body of Imam al-Rida. You find the Imam, he goes towards his house. When he goes towards his house, he lays upon the mattress. He says, oh Abba Salt, remove the mattress. Oh Abba Salt, remove the roof from my house. Abba Salt says, oh Imam, you're going through pain. Why do you want this? The Imam says, for a moment I want to feel that pain which my grandfather Hussein had felt in Karbala. You find at that moment, it stated Imam al-Jawad comes towards the door. Abba Salt says, oh man, who are you? He says, I'm Muhammad al-Jawad. He says, how did you come through the door? He says, the one who's brought me from Medina allowed me to enter. You find the son of the Imam wasn't there. The Imam, he comes, he performs the ghusl. Only a Masoom can perform the ghusl of a Masoom. But I say a time it came upon the 13th of Muharram when Imam Zainul Abidin, he notices that the bodies are scattered in Karbala. He goes in between the bodies. He falls at the body of his father. He says, oh my father, after you they took the hijab of Zainab. After you they took the earrings of Sakina. You find the Imam, he would stand up. Banu Asad would say to the Imam, oh captive, where do we bury the bodies? The Imam says, make one grave for the companions. Make one grave for Habib ibn Madahir. After that they say, oh captive, there is a body by the Furat. When we pick one side of the body, it breaks in half. When we pick the other side of the body, the other side falls down. The Imam, he says, that is the body of my uncle Abbas. I will bury that body. After that he says, oh Banu Asad, step back. back, for only a masoom can bury a masoom. He puts his abba on the ground. He collects the pieces of his father. He begins to put the body of his father in the grave. As he's putting the body of his father in the grave, a voice it comes and said, my child, my child. The Imam says, oh Banu Asad, where is the body of the 6-month Ali Asghar? The Imam puts the body of Ali Asghar on the chest of his father. He closes the grave. Upon the grave he writes, هذا قبر أبي عبد الله الذي قتل غريبا وعطشانا. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أيام القيامة. Raise your hands. The night is Laylatul Jumu'ah. This is that night where du'as are accepted. And it's stated the moment tears they come from the eyes, especially when those tears are for the musibah of Ahlul Bayt. You know, Sheikh Ja'far Shushtari used to write that the majlis of Hussein is like being under the qubba of Sayyid al-Shuhada. That under the qubba of Hussein, du'as are accepted. But this is that maqam where du'as are accepted. Ya Allah, we pray that wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, to help them. Wherever they have any hajat, any needs which are good for them, granted towards them. Ya Allah, we pray for the forgiveness of the followers of Ahlul Bayt. We pray for the strength to walk upon the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And we pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ صَلُّوا عَلَى مُحَمَّدْ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدْ.